Congratulations on a great movie. My first question for you is how did you get attached to this and what made you want to be a part of it?
Well, I got attached I guess, the old-fashioned way. I auditioned for it, and
Mhm.
then fortunately they called, which was great. And I think during the pandemic, my head's like geared up towards pandemic. It's taking care of
Mhm.
all that stuff. So when I got the call that I got the part, it was extra joyous.
Now, you have a background in sociology and psychology, correct?
I do.
How much of that played into your role? Because not but as a investigator,
Yeah.
that kind of plays a huge part when they come to doing the investigation and reading, whether it be the suspect or a victim. So, did any of that come into play while you were crafting this character and performing him?
Always. Yeah. There are two great things to have studied, considering it's all about human behavior.
Hmm.
So, and certainly, I've spoken to cops that talk about how you've got to have a certain sense of humor about certain things, because if you don't, you'll go crazy. And then just understanding the psychology of someone that's gone through something really difficult and how you've got to talk to people differently, given whatever their circumstances are.
Hmm. Now, your character obviously, he's playing by the book, and he can see that there's a little bit of conflict of interest,
Right.
obviously, with Grace and being a part of the investigation. So, how much of that when you were reading that hit you and was like, I, I, I know this is how it has to go, but I don't want this to be how it has to go.
Right. Well, there's the balance of what's on the page and what works cinematically and what's realistic, and like what someone would actually be allowed to do. And I actually have no idea what someone would be allowed to do. And I'm sure, like anything else in life, that there are little allowances made here and there all the time. So I try to work in that area. Like, well, why would this make sense? So on that level, that was the thinking. And the other level, it's just Ben and who he is personally. Like, why is my buddy talking to this guy or to this woman? Why is this happening? Why? I don't understand so there's a little bit of that personal interaction laced through what would actually be happening, I think, as a police officer in that situation.
Now, Sam plays your partner. Sam Page
Yes.
plays your partner in the movie. How did you guys go about crafting your partnership? Because you made it seem like you had been partners for years on screen, but clearly that is not the case in real life.
That was good casting. Sam is awesome. Sam and I had a great time together, and just it was easy. It was really easy. It was probably one of the easiest parts of the filming. Was just I met him because right in the during pre-production, he contacted me to reach out to say he was on the way, and we talked about COVID stuff. We talked about working. We talked about our ideas and what our past has been and what we'd like to do with this. And fortunately, everything kind of lined up, and we just got along. So yeah.
Was there anything in your performance that at first on paper seemed this is going to work, but then when you played it out, in the scene, you're like, no, this is one thing that's not going to work. We need to come at it a different angle.
I think that happens all the time. I think when you're working, I think that a writer can be writing several different characters. You're as a writer, and I write as well. So you write what you think a good idea is, but then you have an actor come in and they breathe life into something, and then something changes, or the chemistry between people changes. I mean, you can't treat everybody exactly the same way. You have a certain way you interact with family or friends or a partner. Um, so I think that we saw we grooved together a certain way, and it just kind of we found the moments in the script for that, and then there were a few moments that weren't in the script that we wanted to make sure were in there. So it was just a matter of he and I saying, hey, what do you think about this? That'd be fun. Well, let's give it a shot. Hey, Monica, who are our director, like, hey, we're gonna do a thing. Okay. And luckily, we're in a very supportive environment, so we got to try different things, and hopefully they worked out.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. You were in a very supportive environment where you don't, I mean, I've obviously never been in the industry, so I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like you don't always run into directors who let you kind of just take the character and make it your own, especially in the part in the fact that this is based off a book. So some of these
Right.
characters exist, and a lot of people,
Right.
especially book readers, don't want to go too far from the book narrative. So for you guys, was that something that was immediate once you stepped on set? Monica was like, take it, let's try it, or is it more something you guys figured out as production went on?
I feel like and you'll get a more full answer when you talk to more people about this, but I feel like Monica just sort of gave us these very like broad, big parameters and allowed us to run around within those. And when we did things, like I had an idea for a certain scene, and she was like, actually, I disagree. I think this is what's happening, and this needs to happen like this. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know. So as for it being a book and coming from a book, I mean, I had this realization when I was like 10. You know, I remember reading the cartoon Garfield, and then seeing the cartoon and being like, oh, this is terrible. His voice doesn't sound like that at all. So I think just as humans, what we do is we put our own voice in things. We have our ideas. So there are things that are on the page that'll be different than what's shot, but also we imagine certain things. We imagine a character's voice, how they look, how they walk. So as soon as we go from reading something to watching something, we can say, this is a different thing. I'm going to watch it and take it in. Or nope, none of this is the way I imagined it. So that's really up to the viewer as to how they want to interpret that, I think.
As an actor, do you feel more pressure though, knowing that, you know, this is a book coming to life and that you have those especially this is Nora Roberts. She's been around for years, written countless of books and have die-hard fans. So do you feel that sense of pressure, or is it more so, look, we're taking this and running with it?
I hope that I would hope that Nora Roberts would be happy with what we all did. And I think that since she is where the source material comes from, I think if she's satisfied, that's a pretty good thing. And hopefully the audience will be as well. Like I said, I think some people grab onto things for various reasons, some good, some bad. But if the actual person who wrote it is like, yeah, that's what I had in mind, then that would make me very happy.
Now you have some behind the scenes work in your obviously resume. So how much of that kind of helped craft your performance in this? You know, as you said, you worked with Monica to kind of, you know, she saw it from different angles and helped you elevate your performance, but also having that background yourself, how did that help in your performance?
Oh, it usually helps. And I think it might have helped here. I mean, I usually bug the camera department a lot. You know, what lens are you using? When I do stills, I'm using this. Well, what's your depth of field? Like, I mean, so I bug them all the time, and they seem to be okay with it.
Did you take anything though from learning from them? Obviously, asking questions.
Always. Oh my God. Always. Yeah. Because, always. How they're shooting something, why they're shooting in a certain way. How are they going to shoot through glass without getting the reflection? How are you? I mean, I learned a lot. Hopefully I retain some of it.
That's the key, isn't it? Just making sure what you learn, you take.
Yes, because nodding and going, oh, wow, yeah, is easy. But being able to then do it, you know, a month later, a year later will be the trick.
Exactly. Well, the other thing I had a question about is in the movie, there's a particular scene towards the end where your character and Ed are talking to your captain about, you know, how you're going to handle this investigation. And your character actually took a turn that I did not see coming for him, that he didn't want to quite, you know, continue the investigation, that he was taking for, in my opinion, granted what was, you know, it's right here in front of us. Let's take it and just call this a quits. Did you see that coming when you read the script? Did you know, or were you like, no, I don't want him to do that?
Well, I love that's the scene, because that's the scene I was talking about with Monica, where I was like, I don't know if we'd be this combative. Yeah. But I totally get it. I mean, I think that there's that moment, and I think that any two individuals have, you know, their own brains, hopefully, and they're going to have their own thoughts and come to their own conclusions. And when you start to add, you know, his relationship with Grace, then my character would be like, well, wait a minute. I mean, are you really thinking this through? And any other number of things. I could be hungry for all I know, and I've decided to close the case, you know. But yeah, my first instinct was like, no, we're still buddy here. Yeah. And then she explained it and why she did, and I was like, yeah, that works.
Well, to sneak in one last question for you, what are you hoping fans get from this movie?
Wow. Something that they say they're going to watch it again, something that they recommend to somebody else. Like, no, you got to check this thing out. That would make me happy if people were able to feel the breadth of emotions that the movie is trying to put out there. So some laughs, some scary moments, you know, some sweet moments. If people can actually feel those things and connect to the characters, then I think, you know, we're successful.
Perfect. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I'm so excited for everyone to see the movie.
Thank you so much. Take care. I appreciate it.